Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today for VMware's multi-cloud live stream. Just a reminder to the audience that these live stream demos are taking place every week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, featuring new speakers and topics. And the recordings will also be hosted on the VMware Cloud YouTube channel to watch on demand. So we encourage you to subscribe to the channel and to stay up to date with all of the latest. So today, my name is Lauren, and I am joined by my co-host, David. If you want to give a brief introduction.
Hi, it's David here, and happy to be here and excited about today's program with John and Martijn, and we're going to be looking at multi-cloud and hybrid cloud management, so it's exciting topics.
Absolutely, and with that, John and Martijn, we're happy to have you guys here today, and give us a little introduction and demo. Do you mind just introducing yourselves first?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. I am a technical marketing manager in the cloud management business unit at VMware. So I prepare enablement for our SEs and for customers to basically show them how our products work and what they can do for them.
Thanks, Jan. Yeah, and my name is Martijn, and as you can see, my webcam is working perfectly right up until the last moment. But I basically do the same thing as Jan in the CMBU as well. I just look after the vRealize Network Insight, the network and monitoring operations product within VMware.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. And just as a final reminder before we get started, if you are joining us live, please feel free to add your questions into the chat, and we will be happy to address those during the call. So with that, we'll let you, John and Martijn, take it away.
All right, excellent. So,
hey, and John, as you get going, maybe you could tell us, just walk us through what you're going to talk about today, but this is a multi-parter, so maybe you can just highlight like sort of what's in today's session.
Good point. So this is going to be a 3-part series. So today we'll kick that off with part 1, which basically what we're doing is we're telling a story around a customer who is adopting multi-cloud. So they've got a private cloud, and now they want to expand out to VMware Cloud on AWS, and they're struggling with how do I manage and how do I move workloads, plan and move workloads, and then how can I provide self-service for the users of my multi-cloud. So today we'll talk about that planning aspect of it and go from there. So that's basically what we're going to cover today. I mentioned a customer. We're going to use an example. This isn't a real customer, but it is the profile of this customer is kind of a composite. So you may see some similarities in some of the problems that your own organization is facing. But the customer is a robotics firm, MOAD. And MOAD has been around for a few decades now, and their traditional business has been in those highly specialized industrial robotics, assembly lines, farm equipment, and so forth. They've done some AI research. But in 2019, they wanted to expand into another line of business. And by that, I mean online commercial sales of home electronics, home robotics kits. And, that really worked out great for them because as the pandemic hit in 2020 and people were stuck at home, their sales just skyrocketed because people were looking for stuff to do with the kids stuck at home or just hobbyists and whatnot. So they've been facing some challenge. Their sales have been growing. They didn't anticipate growing as fast as they have. They've also got some outdated hardware in a data center where the lease is expiring, which means they've got to make some decisions quickly about where these workloads that are in that data center are going to move to. And they also didn't want to do anything that would disrupt their operations team in terms of the tooling they use, additional training, and so forth. Because of the pandemic, again, people were working remotely. They were comfortable with the tools they were using to manage the environment. So it was important to them to maintain that. So what they decided to do was leverage VMware Cloud on the AWS to help with that growth. So there they could, they could go and get the compute resources, the storage resources that they needed in a timely manner. And that would allow them to evacuate that data center that's going off of lease and bring and also take care of the hardware refresh at the same time. So using that, they're using vRealize Cloud Management, okay, to help with those challenges, to keep those consistent operations as they adopt this multi-cloud framework. And so it allows them to, really understand their migration process into hybrid cloud. Now, what we're going to do as we go through these demos is we're going to touch on 3 different personas, and these personas are part of the cloud team at MOAD, and each of them uses a different capability within vRealize Cloud Management. So today, Martijn and I are going to play in the role of the VI admin, and I'll be the VI admin, and then Martijn will be the network admin, and we'll show you how we use vRealize to plan the migration into hybrid cloud or into VMware Cloud on AWS. So we'll be covering this first pillar here, planning and migrating. We're going to assess our capacity needs, find out what applications are running in that data center that we're shutting down. We're going to figure out what are good migration candidates, and then we're going to migrate those applications. Okay. So moving ahead. All right, so as I said, I'll be in the role of the virtual administrator. The virtual administrator uses vRealize Operations to, in this case, vRealize Operations Cloud, to look at that data center. And this is the data center that we're going to decommission here, or that we need to get out of. And it shows us the inventory of that environment, how many VMs we have, the consolidation ratio, what is the workload or the impact of sorry, wrong data center. What is the workload of the overall usage in that environment or in that data center? I can see details about the components within the data center down to the VM level. I can actually click on this little icon here and export that if I needed to, if I wanted to pull it into some other planning tool. Maybe my project management tool or something like that. But I have rich detail about what's in the data center. So the next thing I may want to look at is, all right, how do I size the VMC environment that I want to go into for this? So, and then also, how can I pick migration candidates for this as well? So I can look at things like of the population of virtual machines or workloads that are running in there. I can see who are the top consumers of storage, network IO, for example. I can see if I have VMs that aren't being used at all. These may be candidates to not migrate at all. Maybe they just need to be decommissioned and shut down, or those would be easier to move, and I could use them as kind of the initial batch to move into that new VMC environment. I can see the VM configuration for CPU, memory. I even see very large, enormous VMs here that have a ton of capacity. Again, I might have to make extra considerations about how I migrate or move those in, or I may need to resize those to fit better, which is another capability of vRealize Operations. Here I have my storage details and so forth. And then finally, again, rich details about each and every one of the VMs that I can, of course, export if I wanted to and pull into another tool. So that's how I get information. Yeah.
Just look at that a little bit more. So it's not, it's not, there really is some real work that has to go into figuring out like what are the best candidates, right? Because a lot of it depends on your strategy, right? It's like, if the cloud is ultimately your goal and that's where you want everything to wind up, then you may have a different strategy if you want to simply offload things from the data center, where you just want to create capacity for like your more strategic apps if you're going to continue to run there, as like you said, right? So you but this gives you the foundation for whatever strategy you're operating under to sort of make the right assessments, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I think the idea is to, you've got a big scope. We've got an entire data center that we need to move, but where do I start? And having that kind of broader view and then narrowing down and classifying the workloads that are in the current cloud into groups helps with migrations. I've been part of data center migrations in my own career. And that's typically the best way to do it is to say, okay, how can we best group these so that we know what are the easy ones to move, what are going to be the more difficult ones to move, and that helps you understand the impact of the move schedule as far as timing, the resources that'll be required, and the resources that'll be required in VMC, for example. So you can do some very accurate planning, but it's best to start at that broad scale and then start to narrow down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
That's good advice. Yep.
I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Martijn to show us how Network Insight works for the network admin to do some planning there as well.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to dive in a little bit deeper into David's point. You made a good point about its strategy, about picking up an entire data center and moving that, or just focusing on specific applications and then doing it on a per application basis, right? So there are these different strategies that you can take. And while John was focusing on moving everything at once in his demo, I'm going to actually focus on the per application scenario. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to do any slides. I'm just going to dive into the actual demo environment, and I'm going to show you how vRealize Network Insight looks at the network and then determines what kind of applications are running there. But then also determine like what kind of network requirements do you have when you are moving these. So for example, if you're doing a selective migration, you need to make sure that your connectivity between VMware Cloud and AWS and your on-prem data center, your direct connect or your VPN tunnel is up to the task of doing that traffic between the new cloud environment and the on-prem, or the things that remain on-prem, whether that be applications or maybe even end users. But it all starts with that application context to know what kind of applications are running in your environment. And VRNI has that application context in it, and you can find a list of all your applications in here. And it has a very simple definition, like we have a tier, your regular 3-tier app like web app database tier, and then the members, and this could be VMs, could even be Kubernetes services or a physical service if those exist. Oh, there we go.
Hey, Martijn, quick question for you. In terms of like the semantics and things, sort of the naming conventions, et cetera, I know a lot of this is self-discovered, right? The connections and all that. And then like the application, I assume, how does it come up with the application name? And then what's the ability to sort of change that to something that's human known, basically?
Yeah, I'll get into
Sure.
that with this page. So we do also, by the way, synchronize the application constructs between VRNI and vRealize operations. So once vRealize Network Insight has discovered those applications, you will see the same naming convention pop up in VROP, so you can do the compute calculations there. But basically, what VRNI offers is 5 different ways of application discovery. You can simply use tags. So if your VMs have tags with the names and the tier names inside them, it can also pull it down from a ServiceNow CMDB, or you can use a naming convention. So if the application name is inside the actual VM name, for example, you can use that. But I'm kind of a fan of the flow-based application discovery because that doesn't require anything in advance. The only thing that it needs is the environment. It needs to monitor it, and then it'll come up with this list on its own. So it'll look at the network traffic and then put a machine learning algorithm over it to determine what the application boundaries are and then what the tiers are inside that application boundary. And you would end up with a list something like this, where we are looking at one application here that has 3 tiers, 6 VMs, and all of those VMs are listed here in different tiers. Now, to come back to your point about the naming convention, these names are currently taken from the VM name itself. As you can see in the VM name, there's the NSXV load balancer demo with the app tier and the web tier and database tier. So it assumes that as the application name. You can also use tags or even security groups or tags if you have those attached to those VMs to make sure that that naming convention matches to what you actually have. But the most important thing is that you have this starting point.
Yep. Yeah, you can start with nothing and then build and then apply, human insight to it, or you can start with, naming a core app and say everything that's connected to it, right, and then add, the naming conventions after that, or you can just build it into the system completely from the get-go by embedding names into every object that's connected. And so, yeah, it's super helpful. I did want to make one comment, because I think the awesome thing about this around Network Insight is this isn't all it does. It's really there to help you manage and monitor the network, right? And, understand what's happening and, monitor performance. But part of what it also does is give you this great insight into how everything's connected, right? I think that's...
Oh, yeah. So visibility, monitoring, troubleshooting, that's the primary directives of VRNI. The application discovery came in to give that context to that network information that we're seeing. So what talks to what, so which applications are talking to what. And then I kind of migration planning kind of rolled out of that. It was a kind of a surprise use case that customers came to us asking how we did that in VRNI instead of it actually being a purpose built into VRNI itself. But I'll show you a little bit about how that information gets into VRNI. But so I just showed you the results of that discovery, but I'm looking for the actual the MOAD application first. So I want to look at that application dashboard first. I can see how it's connected to each other, just like you just mentioned, David. Where we can see we've got a database tier, a web tier, and a load gen tier. You can see the connections flowing between one another. And then I can scroll down a little bit, look at the flows, and then get the top talkers of this application. So just in the context of this application, how much traffic is going through these VMs. So in the last 24 hours, we can see that's over a little bit under a terabyte that's been going through the front end, which is quite a lot for a web server, by the way. And you can do a lot more here, like even plan out microsegmentation. So if you are integrating NSX into the picture and doing the actual microsegmentation rules in here, we have the recommended file rules in VRNI. But before I get to that, I want to show you a specific pinboard that I created for this application, basically depicting every single bit of information that I want as a network engineer in order to determine whether the destination of this migration is going to support this application and what type of network requirements do I need in order to, well, support it at the destination. So just as a highlight, I've got differentiations between the actual total traffic, north-south, so internet traffic, and I also have the maximum rate of the actual network traffic rate. And in this case, this is east-west traffic, so the maximum rate gives me the idea of the support that I need for the direct connect or the VPN tunnel. So the connection between the VMC and AWS environment and the on-prem environment. I need at least 50 meg here, which is not that much, honestly, but at least I have that idea, right? I can also see that it does show bursty behavior because 50 meg is the max. Well, 1 meg is the average rate, so that's like very bursty behavior. That also tells me a lot about the application. Can see the per VM page again, and I can also look at the application dependencies, which is another one, very important one for migration, because we need to be able to know what type of application traffic is going over that connection between on-prem and the cloud. So in this case, you can see that there's only one real application dependency, which is this CRM records where this MOAD application is talking to. And the other ones are just the internet and some shared services. So if I want to, I can drill down into these lines and actually get the per flow, so per source destination and port number, even details of what's going on behind the scenes. But this at least gives me the idea of, okay, so I've got this mobile app, but it's also talking to the CRM. So I need to be able to make that communication happen when I move this app. So scroll down a little bit, I can dive deeper, like what type of traffic patterns are going through these VMs. And like I mentioned earlier, it's a little bit bursty, as you can see. It goes up and goes down, and goes up again. One important thing also is the per country. A lot of the context that vRealize offers is just attached to it. So we figure out where in the world is the end users of this application is coming from. And you can see the overwhelming part is coming from the UK. So it would make a lot of sense to put this application in the UK data center, right? So not the US or the APJ location. So you can figure that out here as well. And then just for my benefit, in the same pinboard, I've got that application diagram, the topology, just so I can quickly look at how does that topology look and what talks to what within the application. And then I also drill down into like the internet connection between the database server and the internet. That's an interesting one. So that's probably not supposed to be there. And I would kind of go to my security colleague now and say, hey, I've got a database server talking to the internet. Could you jump into vRealize and figure out what that is and why it's allowed? And that's probably before I migrated or during the migration. But it gives me the entire picture that I need in order to determine the network requirements to get this thing there.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody that's been involved with, and John, you've mentioned this, and it's like any sort of migration of any type, because even we used to see this even when it was data center to data center, right? You just had these issues around understanding issues of latency. It's like what talks to what, how often. You also, and especially when you get into the public cloud, you have a lot of issues around data egress, right? Because that's a big cost driver. So understanding like when is something talking to something, and also when it's transmitting a lot of data really helps you plan for these things. And increasingly, and Martijn, you hit on this around where are your users, but you also have this issue of where's my data and what are the sovereignty issues there. So you have to really think through this now in a way that's not trivial. So this really does give you a ton of insight into how to plan that the migration.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And because you have that differentiation between east-west and traffic and internet traffic, you can kind of predict what your egress traffic is going to be when you move it. So you can kind of predict the networking costs before you actually are presented with the bill, if you will.
Yeah, and what you'll see in part 2 of this is, the same kind of capabilities in both vRealize Operations and Network Insight give you assurance after the migration, right? So, a lot of customers that do migration between data centers, they'll do validation with the application owner, some user acceptance testing or something like that to validate. But we can do this as well to show once we moved it, and we will show in the next demo, hey, everything is connected as we wanted it to be. The communications, the performance, the latency, did it improve? Did it decrease? Our application performance and so forth. So, start to think about it in that way too. It's not just planning, but we'll also use the same capability post-migration.
Yep, cool.
Definitely.
Makes sense.
That was it for the planning scenario. I do want to leave you with, if I can grab that up. Go, come on. Here we go. Yep. I think it. Yeah, there we go. I want to leave you just before the next session on Thursday when we talk about the data ops and the management of these hybrid clouds. If you want to don't want to wait for that session, you can use these QR codes to get to our Pathfinder, where we have a bunch of content around this. You can even click through the same demo that we've been showing you right here and maybe get a sneak peek. There's also hands-on labs available where you can click through everything in a sandbox environment. And of course, we have our vRealize cloud management product page where basically all of the products and the use cases are listed. So I just wanted to leave you with this.
That's perfect. Thank you. And also, if you are joining us from YouTube, these links are in the description. So you can have a quick link to those in the description there. And you'll also see a link pointing to a self-service VMware Cloud on AWS offering right now. So this is where you can purchase and get started online. So we encourage you to check that out, as well as some of the other resources that were just mentioned, including the hands-on labs and more information on our website.
Hey, that was that was a really great demo on how to really get insight into what you have, and it's really a challenging problem for a lot of organizations, especially if they're planning a big move. Even if you're planning a small move, applications are really way more complex when you dig underneath the covers than people think. They don't realize what's talking to what, and and especially applications that have been around for a while, because they're sort of like organically develop all these tentacles, right? People add in hooks to them, and then nobody remembers that they added those hooks in, and all of a sudden you look at it and you go, wow, I didn't realize this was talking that. What was also beautiful is, Martijn, you highlighted that you also find hooks that nobody knew about and really shouldn't be there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm also very interested in why a web shop application is talking to our CRM.
Right.
Honestly,
and sometimes they were just something simple. Somebody was testing something, they put in a hook, and they forgot to take it out, right? And then it's like it's been there, but it's a vulnerability, and then that's the only time you really find it is when you're doing something like this. You're planning to move the thing. You realize that you don't necessarily have all the best practices in place. It's good stuff.
But it also provides that same platform and visuals so that you, as you mentioned, your security teammate can take a look into the same information that you are in visuals, so that you have a single, frame of reference that you're able to go to and sort it out from there. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. I think that was a great demo, and we're definitely looking forward to this Thursday, as you mentioned. So it'll be the same time this Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific. So we'll be starting at 10:10, where we'll be hosting part 2 of this series. So we'll be bringing you back, and we'll be focusing there on how you can use vRealize to manage your performance, cost, and compliance in your hybrid environment. So with that, any closing thoughts from you all, or any final reminders, or anything you wanted to share?
No, just join us for part 2. I think you're going to be pleased with what we can do post-migration too.
All right.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. And
thanks, everyone.
Yeah, as a final reminder, make sure you subscribe, and then you'll have all of this notified for you and ready when we're coming up with new solutions and new demos each week. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.